Today is day 9, December 2023. We will make a movement quite simple, quite clear, considering the required made as IoT directory opened at the US Defense to understand how the misuse of resources by all institutions globally talking can, be evidencing all misuses globally distributed. Simple to get. We will check that the very first thing we had was this idea: Brazil and peers. Brazil is the area of complaint with reference as the regulation in Brazil and international agreements confirmed and recognized by Brazil, despite not recognizing the institution with legitimacy to apply the consequence against Brazil and peer power misuses at the institution and state. Simple to get, the distribution of both is public or corporate, with distortion inside combined as distortion is a total distortion as public and corporate in Brazil that can have action as Brazilian action or international action in Brazil, and so the corruption can be the corruption of USA in Brazil or the US corruption in Brazil. It's the idea as if you have a trailer court and the vehicle is official vehicle of United States. The American agent doing the corruption in a department of Brazil, indeed we have corruption with United States. If the corruption is made at the trailer court, we have corruption in United States. In both cases, the legitimacy to apply the law is sourced on sovereignty. But if you do the market of decision, indeed, you have no legitimacy to present itself as sovereignty. So you can apply the law by the current architecture as marketing the state power and institutional power. We'll take a read in our report today. It's on block project IoData Taxa, European Union, USA, considering Portugal. And by the way, we are pretty European today. We can have bath or the teeth brushed by the repairs at the building. Thank God they have, built care items. And also we didn't have to shit. Because if we can use the toilet paper, but indeed the work never will be flawless made, and will have traces. In the same way we observe at the architecture by the lenient behavior and the lack of will complaint a dozen times since 2014. And by this, we expect the solution of this conclusive object codified at least since 2022. We're talking the same thing. Under local interference and aggressions to steal the asset before God totally set. It means that we didn't create it yet and we are suffering interference to steal the preparation of the intellectual asset, which implies the risks as utility and reducing the capacity of the things under creation. And you do this by the suppression of thoughts and other instruments. CGQM team offered closed project IoData Taxa and reporting good faith because you recognize the object. At the architecture having the issues complained despite not enough goodwill because you never solve the problem to solve the object, and by this having still confirmed lack of will as lenient or silent with functionality not here related with object or issues complained, even, you know, as something that is presented at the very first moment is not intentional. We offered also model as result expected at project while data task to identify the bug, codify, and apply the machine decision. We are doing 100 years of program science as a humble contribution, considering the wild data task as European monetary system and also a humble improvement to the audit governance, risk and compliance with the administration, as you know, the activity life, and of course that it's a contribution, pro bono, but very humble, but with all excuse to claim the entire things we claimed, including 40 trillions, 12 billions, judicial storage, research, of values, more prisons, and consequence affordable. We recognize and we respect the agreements and the court, international regulations, right? We made new conclusive audit procedure to expose how power misusers do interference for a criminal purpose from institution and states. They act from inside to keep the mistakes that goes on inside, but annoy beyond the limits of those institutions, the entire society, and threats the global population. If you do by combined criminal interests of architecture setting a system like Brazil, USA, the rights of the creator of something and the legacy and heritage that will be to the next generation of this family, indeed you are threatening the next generation. Projected, you threat the future of mankind. Family is the base of society. You are against this too by the power misuse to cover power previously misused by specific current power misusers in Blazing Act. Complain divided and against aggressions made by power misuse, hurt the effort and interest. In general, try to set the perception as criminal activity. We proved that power misusers act by suppressed guarantees or violated rights and total skip of obligations or regulation. In general, is by intimidation and frauds. Included defaulted international agreements like Home Agreement or the Security Forum that recognize the International Criminal Court, but for sure totally ignored by the object complainant, project biodata task model for research. Evidence proved existence of institutional crime as institutional interest, because remains inside. Solution quite simple: dismissal list or dismiss order to destitute or outpost the power misuse. Next generation can be seriously affected by current power misuse. Think about the victims of COVID, the families destroyed, the lack of reference as values to continue the things. Can you picture the Europe taking showers every day, 2 or 3 times a day? They will have a bankruptcy at the beauty scare industry. So, and the architecture of power. And we offered as continuity plan a humble contribution as 100 years of program science by wild data task, audit, governance, risk and compliance, improved by wild data task. We can complain with offenders. In general, we set the intelligence of them to improve the criminal scams from institutions and states. And even internationally has a buffering by blind eye. The model is here, quite simple to get. We have the regression for west and east, considering the nations crossed, the cities crossed. Then we have the codification and a jump to the institution inside the cities or the nations as unity. For instance, California and Rio de Janeiro, or the nation America and USA. And in the end, we will always have the codification, as you can observe the parallel regression of the matrix, The codification will be regular area, regular procedure, corrupted and viewed as criminal purpose, set the indictment of specific criminal chairs or criminal heads. We require the IoT directory to be opened because you take advantage of logical gap at the financial system, and of course by prevention we can observe this in all areas, including the inputs you can do by permutation and the electoral procedure. Sometimes have dead people voting. We can observe that this is caught in the was caught with the hands in the act by the distribution of values with a limit and the validation as a minor limit inside the interval will be disrespected. And then you have the medias conformance that can be made by judicial activism, the market of decision considering the proofs and the indictment as evidence by the police as fake record caught in Brazil also. And we can observe that the intention to continue this improve the model that do not have the interest as can be permanently with the hands in the act as blazing act. And they will set the interval as something quite simple to get, that the permutation of values indeed is made because you can observe that if we have the events previous, the events after, and in the middle we have the channel or the gateway to do the permutation of, for instance, the guilted person here previously noticed can be put as an innocent person since you had something that allowed you to do this. So you prepare the criminal environment to commit the crime and modify the data by permutation of this. Here we have the planning activity. Here we have the permutation as current records made. Here is the fake data scam as gateway to achieve who plans the criminal activity from institution. In the same way, if we put in our model, we have the situation, we have the prepared event previously to modify by an empty interval the situation here and transfer this by this area here, setting an interval as the possibility to scapegoat things or do not suffer the consequence. For instance, if you clone the ID of someone as mobile, which is an ID that belongs to someone, considering the contracts as use, exclusive use of the operational system, and then you made the access and frauds totally legal, then when the person is going away or having the journey to other country or other city, can come back and got logged at the local access as local access network, will be spotted as the IoT, the instrument as reference that is cloned, and then you will consider that this is enough evidence to put someone down and scapegoat yourselves. But you must have in mind that we required all the time that even by confession, which is one of the strong ways to do the conviction in USA, the plea bargain, the confession or trial by jury must be confirmed by other proofs, especially if can be compared with other system and other instruments. In the same way, we request and we offer the database Sigma as macro big data to do not have the exclusive dependence of a unique source, in general as the World Bank. We will finish here. Is quite conclusive, at least on my humble sites, that we had the economic espionage by the harassment made, considering our effort made and interest her, including the IoT as defense of USA and the entire Europe, BOG and the review as G7 and the Second War Agreement as restricted access to military defense of Italy, Germany, and Japan, Brazil and PS criminal system, by obvious, are against all this. We required 40 trillion to be stored at the bank as compensation. It's not a payment, it's a compensation by the time, at the cost of time to do the proper solution. 12 billions considering the case as harassment and industrial espionage, considering the effort made in the architecture. We must prepare and observe how the criminal system goes and keep the follow-up and forecast that for sure expend a lot of money. And doing the regression of these 40 trillions and also the 12 billions, which is a case, the other case and interest, the other are the storage by as compensation. We request to convict all offenders in the same way as the criminal system, and especially have the regression from fake data as procedural fraud until the planning activity made by institution and states, considering the chairs and heads inside. The institutional and state crime necessarily imply criminals inside both. The combination is at the board, at the model, the wild data task help and improve the object at the IoT directory as the permutation made for criminal purpose implies at least the interest as continued based on this specific operation. And the last thing we had is that the interest, and we have AX plus BX, isolation X as corruption or interest, related or associated with A and B. It implies that it's this idea here. We will have the X as distortion to unveil the Z as estimative interest at the handmade data presented by department. We will have the summary because it was 17 minutes video.